But not every bunker was defensive. Hitler himself maintained a network of personal underground headquarters that represented some of the most sophisticated engineering achievements of the entire war. The Wolf's Lair in northern Germany was where he spent the majority of his wartime years. It was less a bunker than a fortress buried under a forest. The concrete roof over Hitler's personal quarters was 7 meters thick. Above the concrete sat a deep layer of gravel designed to absorb the kinetic energy of any bomb before it reached the concrete below. Above the gravel, covering the entire structure as far as any aircraft flying overhead could see, were the same trees, the same undergrowth, and the same forest floor that surrounded it on every side. Pilots flying over the Wolf's Lair saw nothing but forest. There was not a single window in the entire structure. Ventilation was provided by a sophisticated underground system that circulated fresh air throughout the complex while removing carbon dioxide. Steel blast doors sealed the entrances against chemical attack. It stood for years inside a forest that had been shaped by human hands to be its camouflage, and it was so thoroughly embedded in the landscape that destroying it after the war was found to be practically impossible. Large sections of it still stand today. The Führerbunker in Berlin was where the story ended. Built under the Reich Chancellery Garden and reinforced to withstand Allied bombing campaigns that had already reduced most of the surrounding city to rubble, this was the bunker where Hitler spent his final days as Soviet forces closed in from all directions in April 1945. On April 30th, 1945, he died inside it. Today, nothing of the Führerbunker is visible on the surface. The garden above it has been built over. There is a parking lot, a tourist information sign, nothing else. The most historically significant underground structure of the 20th century lies beneath a car park in central Berlin, sealed and inaccessible, its precise extent still not fully mapped. Across the world that Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan had tried to control, thousands more bunkers share the fate of the one found in Poland in 2018. When the war ended, retreating German and Japanese forces either sealed their bunkers with heavy materials and fled or died inside them. The maps showing their locations were burned or buried or lost with the people who had drawn them. The bunkers had been designed to be invisible from the surface, and they remained invisible. In Japan, the island of Iwo Jima contained an entire underground city beneath its volcanic rock. A network of tunnels and fighting positions housing thousands of Japanese soldiers that proved so complex and so effective that the American assault on the island became one of the most costly battles of the entire Pacific campaign. Many sections of that underground network remain unexplored today. The excavation team that found the Polish tunnel in 2018 had been looking for it for years. Local authorities had a wartime map suggesting it was somewhere in the area, but the camouflage had been too good and the vegetation too complete. It took a pipe sticking out of a dead volcano in a forest to reveal what 70 years of searching had failed to find. When they finally went inside and saw the minecart sitting on its tracks in the dark, they were looking at something that no human eye had seen since sometime in 1945. The tools on the shelves, the rust on the iron, the absolute stillness of a space that had been sealed away from the living world for longer than most of the people standing in it had been alive. Somewhere beneath the forests and fields of Europe and Asia, thousands more of these spaces are waiting, not for discovery necessarily, simply waiting, as they have been waiting since the last person who knew where they were sealed the entrance and walked away. This is World Unveiled. Subscribe because the most extraordinary stories are the ones still buried. And some of them are buried very literally indeed. In March 2018, an excavation team standing in a dense forest in southern Poland near the city of Lubin noticed something that did not belong in a forest. A pipe coming out of the ground, in the middle of what appeared to be an old dead volcano, completely overgrown with trees, grass, and decades of undisturbed vegetation. The team lowered a night vision camera into the pipe. The camera descended 30 meters into the earth. And then it captured something that nobody had seen since the Second World War ended more than 70 years earlier. A tunnel, wide enough to walk through, with railway tracks running along the floor, and at the far end of the tracks, sitting exactly where someone had left it in 1945, a minecart. Welcome to World Unveiled. Tonight, we go underground into a world that Hitler built and the earth swallowed. This is the story of the hidden bunkers of World War II. The local authorities arrived at the excavation site carrying something extraordinary. A map. A wartime map showing a network of underground tunnels that had been constructed in this exact location during the Second World War by Nazi military engineers. The tunnel the camera had found matched the map precisely. The entrance had been sealed with heavy stones after the war ended, and then buried under years of soil and plant growth until every visible trace of it had disappeared from the surface. Inside the tunnel, the excavation team found tools still in the condition in which German soldiers had left them. Shovels, drill bits, pickaxes. 80 years of rust had settled onto the iron, but the objects themselves were intact, sitting on shelves and in corners as if the workers had simply walked out one afternoon and never returned. Which, in a way, is exactly what had happened. To understand why thousands of tunnels and bunkers like this one remain hidden across Europe and Asia, you need to understand the scale of what was built underground during the Second World War. It was not simply impressive, it was beyond anything that had been constructed beneath the earth in all of human history before it. In the 6 years of the war, the combined military powers of Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States, the Soviet Union, and their respective allies poured more concrete and steel into underground structures than had been used in all previous human construction combined. The global shortage of iron and cement during the war years was not caused by surface construction. It was caused by what was happening underground. Estimates of the total cost of all bunkers, tunnels, fortifications, and underground facilities built during the Second World War range from $500 billion to $1 trillion in today's money. To put that in perspective, the entire American military campaign in Afghanistan over 20 years cost approximately $2 trillion at a rate of roughly $300 million per day. Building the bunkers of World War II cost the equivalent of $460 million every single day for 6 years. The most visible expression of this underground obsession was what Hitler called the Atlantic Wall. Stretching for 3,800 kilometers along the entire western coastline of Europe from Norway in the north to the Spanish border in the south, the Atlantic Wall was the largest defensive construction project in history. It was not a wall in any conventional sense. It was a system, a connected network of thousands of reinforced concrete bunkers, artillery batteries, ammunition depots, underground tunnels, and fortified positions designed to make any Allied attempt to cross the English Channel and land on European soil an act of suicidal madness. Between 1940 and 1944, a German engineering organization called the Organization Todt employed 260,000 workers, most of them prisoners and forced laborers, to construct this system in conditions of extraordinary danger and brutality. The concrete poured into the Atlantic Wall alone would have been enough to build a solid wall 3 meters high and 1 meter thick, stretching from London to New York 4 times over. In 1942, the Allied forces received a brutal education in what this system could do. Canadian troops launched what is now called the Dieppe Raid, a large-scale assault on the French coastline, designed to test the Atlantic Wall and gather intelligence about German defenses. The results were catastrophic. The reinforced concrete bunkers absorbed every shell the Canadians fired and returned withering crossfire from positions the attackers could not see and could not reach. Of the approximately 5,000 Allied soldiers who landed at Dieppe, 3,600 were killed, wounded, or captured within hours. The lesson the Allied command took from Dieppe was simple and expensive. Underground fortifications built correctly were essentially impregnable to conventional attack. The only way to defeat them was to go around them, which is exactly what the D-Day planners spent the next 2 years figuring out how to do.